The Vikings were one of the most feared forces in history. For over 3 centuries, they raided, conquered, and built an enduring legacy as some of the most fearsome warriors the world has ever seen. These Norse warriors made a lasting mark that is still felt today because of their vicious raids and unparalleled military prowess. However, they used more than just physical strength to win. So, what made the Viking warriors so uniquely effective? And why were they so much better at fighting? In this video, we will delve into the secrets behind Viking warfare, exploring their training, tactics, and the fearless mindset that made them one of history's most formidable fighting forces. So get ready to uncover what truly made the Vikings unstoppable. History of the Vikings. The Vikings are one of the most fascinating and misunderstood groups in history. Emerging from Scandinavia in the late 8th century, they quickly became known for their daring raids and incredible seafaring abilities. These Norsemen weren't just warriors, they were explorers, traders, and settlers who left a lasting mark on the medieval world. The Viking Age began with a bang in 793 AD, when raiders attacked the monastery at Lindisfarne, shocking Europe and setting the tone for centuries of Viking activity. But the Vikings weren't just about pillaging. They were skilled craftsmen, building longships that could travel across oceans and navigate shallow rivers, giving them the ability to reach almost any target. This mobility made them a force to be reckoned with, from the coasts of England to the rivers of Russia. Despite their reputation as brutal marauders, the Vikings were also savvy traders. They established trade routes that stretched from the Middle East to Greenland, exchanging goods like furs, amber, and even slaves. Their settlements in places like Iceland, Greenland, and Newfoundland show that they weren't just raiders. They were pioneers, willing to brave the unknown in search of opportunity. Culturally, the Vikings were rich in mythology and tradition. Their sagas and poems tell tales of gods like Odin and Thor, fearless warriors, and epic battles. These stories weren't just entertainment, they reflected the values of a society that prized bravery, loyalty, and honor. The Viking Age came to an end around the 11th century as Christianity spread through Scandinavia and kingdoms became more centralized. But the legacy of the Vikings lives on. From their innovations in shipbuilding to their influence on language and place names, they've left an indelible mark on history. Yet for all of their achievements, one thing that has made people even more curious about this group is how they fought, which made them one of the most feared groups in history. So, why were the Vikings so much better at fighting? To understand their unmatched prowess, we need to delve into their culture, their training, and their fearless approach to war. Rigorous training and warrior culture. Now, to the Vikings, combat was more than simply a talent. It was a way of life. Boys were taught to handle weapons with power and accuracy from an early age. This was necessary for survival, not just for fun. Every Viking who grew up in this environment had to be prepared to defend their home or join a raiding party at any time. The extensive and demanding training covered everything from swordsmanship to the use of shields and axes. The Glimma martial technique was one of the most intriguing components of Viking fighting training. This approach, which placed a strong emphasis on grapples, throws, and joint locks rather than merely using pure force, gave fighters a considerable advantage in close combat. Glimma practice was ingrained in daily life and was not voluntary. Even kids took part, viewing it as kind of amusement as well as a way to get ready for maturity. Because of this base, Vikings were incredibly skilled warriors who would combine strength, quickness, and technique. Every Viking man was required to be proficient with weapons. This martial ethos was further reinforced by riding culture. The Vikings saw combat as a chance for riches, prestige, and legacy. They became some of the most formidable fighters in history as a result of this unrelenting desire for survival and legacy. And according to history books, it's almost as if they embraced death, fearlessness, and the afterlife. For the Vikings, death in battle wasn't something to be feared. Their belief in the afterlife gave them a fearlessness that set them apart on the battlefield. According to Norse mythology, warriors who died bravely in combat were granted a place in Valhalla, the Great Hall of Odin, or Folkvanger, the realm of the goddess Freya. Both were considered paradises for warriors where they could feast, fight, and prepare for the ultimate battle of Ragnarok. The Viking way of thinking was essentially influenced by this idea. Combat death was viewed as a joyful entry into an afterlife full of rewards rather than as the end. For many, the desire to live on by valiant actions and be immortalized in sagas was more significant than simply surviving. Because of this, Vikings were extremely dangerous opponents. They raced into battle with enthusiasm, motivated by the desire to be included among the honored dead, whereas most warriors fought cautiously, desperate to save their lives. This attitude proved frightening to their foes. It was psychologically terrible to face an opponent who did not dread death. Even the most experienced troops lost their resolve when they saw a Viking warrior shouting with battle cries and displaying no hesitancy. Their fearlessness gave them a psychological edge that helped them win wars. The Vikings frequently took advantage of this reputation. Stories of their boldness and bravery swiftly circulated, making everyone who encountered them fearful. Knowing that they were up against not just expert raiders, but also warriors who battled as if they had nothing to lose. Towns and villages were terrified just by the sight of their recognizable longships on the horizon. In many ways, this fearlessness was a weapon in itself. It allowed the Vikings to dominate their enemies, not just physically but mentally, turning their beliefs into one of the most powerful tools in their arsenal. Their courage was legendary, and for those who fought against them, it was unforgettable. Berserkers, the savage elite. The most infamous and feared warriors of the Viking Age were the Berserkers. These great fighters blurred the distinction between myth and reality, known for their untamed, trance-like rage in combat. They were believed to channel their savagery by donning animal pelts, usually the skins of wolves or bears, and become unstoppable forces on the battlefield. Their Old Norse name, which literally translates as bear shirt, alludes to their animalistic traits. Berserkers were known for their unbridled strength and bravery in battle. According to the Old Norse stories, they charged into battles unarmored, brandishing huge weapons and disregarding their own safety. They howled like wolves, chewed their shields, and battled so fiercely that they appeared to be impervious to fatigue or pain. This berserker rage, or berserker gang, was said to give them superhuman strength, making them nearly invincible against their enemies. The origins of their infamous rage remain a topic of debate. Some historians believe it was induced by psychological conditioning or a heightened state of hysteria. Others speculate that natural stimulants like mushrooms or plants, such as henbane, might have played a role in altering their perception and pain threshold. Whatever the cause, their terrifying presence was enough to strike fear into even the most disciplined armies. Now, there is one more thing that caused the Vikings to be so fearless in battle, and it is their sense of camaraderie and morale. Viking warriors were strong because of their camaraderie, not merely because of their weapons or strategies. In addition to being combat groups, Viking crews were close-knit communities created through mutual support and adversity. Together, these fighters endured arduous seas, claustrophobic circumstances, and the constant fear of peril for weeks or even months on longships. Each member relied on the others for survival because of the unbreakable kinship that resulted from their proximity. On the battlefield, this sense of solidarity persisted. Vikings fought in unified groups rather than as solitary individuals. They frequently had a psychological advantage over less organized adversaries because of their mutual devotion and sense of obligation. Each warrior fought with fierce devotion in order to preserve the group's honor and reputation as a whole. A Viking understood that his courage was a reflection of his crew and his community, not only of his own pride. The social pressure to avoid cowardice was immense. In Viking society, fleeing from battle was one of the greatest disgraces a man could endure. Cowardice not only tarnished the individual, but also brought shame upon his family and companions. This stigma meant that retreat was almost never an option. Vikings fought with the desperation and resolve of men who had everything to lose by giving up. Their morale was further bolstered by the egalitarian nature of their crews. Viking crews functioned with a spirit of equality, in contrast to other armies of the day, where strict hierarchies frequently fostered animosity. Respect and ability were prerequisites for leadership, which promoted a climate of cooperation and trust. Every member was encouraged to participate completely and felt appreciated thanks to this arrangement. Collectively, these ties of honor, friendship, and support for one another produced a warrior culture that was very difficult to eradicate. The Vikings' units were among the most powerful and cohesive in history because they didn't just battle for themselves, they fought for one another. Their illustrious success was largely attributed to their unwavering morale, which was fostered by trust and shared experience. So, what do you think about the legendary fighting prowess of the Vikings? Could you imagine standing your ground against such fearless warriors? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fascinating dives into history. Until next time, thanks for watching.